Good afternoon, all, and welcome to the Metaverse Symposium hosted by DSCI. Imagine if you could take real world activities such as interactions, works, meetings, classes, and even events to an online immersive space and vice versa. The amalgam of technologies such as AR, VR, blockchain, and AI is going to unfold such a digital reality, commonly christened the metaverse. The metaverse can be thought of as a digital extension or mirror of the real world identities, workplaces, and events. Amidst this hype and haze around the concept of the metaverse, many global brands, and tech giants, frankly, Facebook, Microsoft, Adidas, Samsung, to name a few, have lined up to be prime movers in what has been dubbed as the next phase of the internet. The idea of the metaverse is, to a large extent, enabled by the proliferation of immersive virtual reality, crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, decentralized apps, and networks, among other technologies. Notwithstanding the fast pace of technology development, the rules of the road need to be established as the technology industry and society embrace the next phase of the internet and bring it to life. In other words, the principles of privacy, safety, and security need to be built in from the very beginning, given the scale of sensitive data being collected. The metaverse is also going to pose a whole new host of legal, regulatory, and governance challenges. Against this backdrop, the Data Security Council of India is organizing a symposium on the metaverse and deliberating on the technology stack, ideas and projects associated with crypto assets, and the risks of data breaches and financial fraud. The half day event will also discuss the new paradigm of Web 3.0, decentralized apps, and finances, the anticipated governance and legal challenges as well, and for good measure, what other technology prevalence is across the globe. To start off this event, I invite Rama Vedashree, CEO at DSCI, to give the inaugural address.
Good afternoon, everyone. Unlike my colleague Anisha, I feel really old and obsolete kicking off this session around metaverse because I actually started my professional career with desktops with MS-DOS and Windows 95. So probably I'm a little too dated to be talking in the metaverse symposium. But my team and I, particularly Vinayak and a couple of my team members, Dr. Munish, Anisha, Vibhor, Jatin, they've all put together this metaverse symposium. And because I think this is one which is really taking the technology industry by storm. Every time, whenever there is a new technology wave, either there is a lot of hype and buzz around it, or there is a lot of denial around that possibility and potential of that technology in the near term, or we start getting industry ecosystem partners, players, community, professional communities together, start deliberating on the new technology wave and the stack and all the implications and imperatives around that, and start getting prepared for it so that it does not, we are underprepared when it really comes. When we talk about metaverse, I'll just spend a little time on, I'll refer to some notes on the actual, the kind of numbers that are being talked about by analysts. And it's not like it's really, far away. There are a lot of proto metaverses that are coming up. Particularly, we are seeing a lot of it in the gaming industry. I'll talk about a little bit of those trends that we are seeing and why it's not just in gaming, in broader the entire ecosystem. Even if you look at what is the metaverse ecosystem all about, it's not just some new league of innovators. I think there's a lot of technology leaders across various verticals, whether it's on the cloud side, whether it's on the gaming side, whether it is on the telecom and the networking side. So if you look at just even the metaverse ecosystem, I would say the ecosystem is spanning across the basic gateways, metaverse gateways, which is the entire centralized, decentralized infrastructure. I think we have a deep dive session around the decentralized infrastructure. The whole lot of innovation that is happening around avatars and identities, and this entire discussions around digital sovereign identities that we are seeing, because of which I think the deliberations with security professionals and privacy professionals is extremely important. A maximum buzz that we are beginning to see is on immersion and user interfaces. of course, on crypto, whether it's on the crypto wallets and access and the economy side of it and the marketplaces for that, and NFT and blockchain, and we are beginning to see developer services are beginning to emerge, and this entire social play around the metaverse. What is most important and interesting that we are beginning to see, particularly on the gaming side, is usually you have paid to play a game, right? Or you have bought a product or a service or a device to be able to play that. Whereas now we are beginning to see a lot that is actually happening. It's no longer science fiction or in the hype or the buzz stage. It's not just a buzz where you just don't pay to play, or you pay on your own, or you pay with a group of people. There's a lot that is happening thanks to everything that is getting is emerging in the virtual world. In the near term, particularly last 2 years, we have seen so much of that happening in the gaming industry, where you actually play to earn, and you can also play to collect, and you can be a non-player and participate in these social squares of these games. All of this that is happening in the gaming world, which is very close to the potential and the reality of metaverse, gives us the pointers to the fact that it's probably not as far as away as we may be fearing or we may be wondering, right? Another thing that is very core to the metaverse becoming real in the near term or in the midterm is the potential that we are seeing in terms of cloud scalability and hosting and virtualization. And maybe 5 years back, when we talked about digital twins, it was like some science fiction, right? Whereas now we are beginning to see a lot of that. And decentralized infra. Because of all of this, we will see, and the potential of AI, where AI is getting mainstreamed and blockchain is getting mainstreamed in many of these, in many aspects. So when you see across all these ecosystem, we are beginning to see a lot. Whether you look at the telecom players like an Ericsson and Nokia, we are beginning to see a lot of players, like whether it's Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon. I'm talking about the traditional technology or ICT OEMs. But apart from that, we are seeing, I think, a lot of thought leadership come from the gaming industry in the metaverse domain, right? This is where we are beginning to see where the immersive technologies and AR, VR are going to revolutionize the way users engage in virtual spaces. And because of that, what is it that there is going to be a revolutionizing in the identity ecosystem or identity systems and digital identities? And what are all the economic aspects of I mean, few years back, we've all dealt with mobile apps and the monetization of mobile apps, the in app monetization opportunities. All of that is getting revolutionized in a completely different way when it comes to games, right? How do I'm using games as one example, but I'm sure in the rest of the symposium there'll be a lot of deliberations, because this is where we are beginning to see a lot of confluence or thought leadership that is emerging, and mainstreaming that is happening, mainly thanks to what's happening worldwide in the gaming industry and in those players. We're beginning to see where there's a new economic model that is coming, where brands can engage in a little more, not a force fit or an intrusive way, but where can brands integrate and engage in an authentic way in game? How can not just players but non-players can participate in games for a certain social experience? We are seeing gaming games being moving from a product and a service to a platform, and the moment it is a platform, there are new social opportunities like virtual concerts, all of that coming, right? I'm using one example to say that all that is happening, and the technology innovation ecosystem that is coming together to understand, first maybe get our arms around what is the potential of metaverse and what are various elements of the metaverse. 5G and potentially 6G in the near future is something that is beginning to show that the cloud and the cloud scalability opportunities, if you mix these two with the innovation ecosystem and some of the early learnings that are coming from the gaming industry, we're beginning to see how community will play a very extremely important role in the metaverse ecosystem, because communities are just not consumers, but communities can be creators, communities participate in the metaverse economy and in the economic aspects of this, and how do they also make money and monetize. Similarly, from whatever little reading I've done about metaverse, in the entire internet, web 1, web and web 2.0 world, I think developers ruled the roost, where it was all about web developers, and those architects created the entire internet ecosystem and the economy and the apps around it, and the websites and portals and engagement platforms around that. Whereas at least early pointers show that game developers are really going to be the architects of the metaverse and web 3.0, which means how do you engage, what is that immersive way in which you will engage users, players, how will you attract more people into the ecosystem to be able to participate on these platforms. This is something that we are beginning to see. Similarly, this as a service, which I think thanks to cloud, we have a much better understanding of anything that is getting offered as a service. In my a little bit with my minimal understanding of metaverse, I would say anything as a service will be taken into a completely new realm. When we are talking about virtual experiences, I think already, if you see in the last 2 years, a lot of what used to happen on ground, whether it is events, conferences, a lot of families who have hosted weddings, and the streaming, thanks to the consumption and traction of online streaming for a lot of social experiences, whether it is in terms of virtual concerts, whether it's even social functions and social events. I think there's a lot that is being taught about how do you architect those kind of platforms and solutions. Some of the things that I would believe are going to be extremely important is interoperability. That is where, a lot of discussions of technical professional communities comes into the picture, because even if you see in the current gaming thing, where you always played with the game, where now we are talking about how can you merge different games and how can you create that immersive experience across multiple virtual platforms. So there, how do you look at interoperability, how do you look at persistence, right? How do you architect solutions and products in the metaverse scenario, where persistence and scalability is going to be important? And most importantly, how do you look at the digital and the physical things, right? The physical, and because everything is going to span both the physical world and the digital world. And there's a new economy that is being talked about in the metaverse paradigm of the creator economy, that you are not just a consumer of content that is being created by big players or big tech companies or some platform companies, but how can I, as a consumer, also contribute and be part of this, and have opportunities to monetize that. So there's so many new paradigms. It's not just a technology stack and multiple ecosystem players trying to grapple with what is the potential of metaverse, but there's a lot. Some of the early drivers are already in place independently of where we believe the potential of metaverse is going to be real in not so distant future. One is the crypto and the decentralized infra and mainstreaming of blockchain for various applications, and what was thought through 4 or 5 years back. We are beginning to see rapid advances in hardware and networks, particularly thanks to 5G and 6G. Right, the we are seeing commodity hardware, end user devices, whether it's laptops or whether it's your tablets and mobile phones, the kind of power that is there to be able to work on these immersive applications, social applications. And last 2 years particularly, we have seen growth of games, not just as a gaming platform, but really as a social platform where people come together, right, worldwide. You'll be surprised, folks. I'm not smoking something and I'm talking something. You'll be surprised if you're in NCR. There is a very passionate community of senior citizens who play bridge, and they would all assemble either in somebody's home or they will assemble in some club that they're members of. And bridge in senior citizens community in NCR, maybe it's there in Bombay, I'm now familiar with NCR, so I'm talking about that. It was a reality. They would play bridge diligently every day of the year. and they would all assemble. It's also planned. Okay, whereas you will be surprised how much they have taken to virtual platforms to play bridge, and they're all senior citizens, 70 plus ladies, senior retired officers, railway officers, government officers, and now they're not playing within that bridge kitty group. They're playing bridge with some on some global platforms with players from anywhere in the world. And I am familiar with one of my friends, a mom who's maybe 78 or 79, if I'm not wrong, East Delhi resident, who's taken on to playing bridge from a club to now to virtual platforms, and she's playing very comfortably. Took her whatever. So if you look at these kind of learnings, I think there's a lot that is happening. So these kind of platforms that are being adopted by citizens, by people, users, children on the virtual online gaming thing, and a few senior citizens too. So I think the experience with social and immersive potential of technologies is getting a little more mainstream than we actually imagine. And many of these things will bring up issues of regulatory legal challenges, privacy. When you look at the digital avatars being many avatars, how do you have avatars where you're also having your pets and you have vehicles to it. All of these are going to create, it's very nice to say or talk about self sovereign identities, but there are so many aspects that we need to do it. None of us in DSCI team have that deep dive expertise as yet, but the objective of doing a symposium like this is to get the early enthusiasts, professionals who have done some homework around this, some of the startups, some academicians would have done little more reading or published some research. That's where I think the objective of this one. If you look at the some numbers that are being thrown by analysts, I think that's extremely important. Some statistics, I mean, it's not NASCOM or DSA who have come up with these numbers. These are some published research reports coming from this entire AI economy. It's expected to touch $15 trillion in GDP growth by 2030, right? We are already looking at the kind of investments companies like Facebook have put in metaverse and the kind of hiring they're doing, right? We have seen very traditional organizations, corporations like Sony make some $200 million investments. We have seen a global cloud player investing in a gaming company of some 67 or $70 billion kind of investment, right? On online concerts, I'm told one online virtual concerts player, they've so far, maybe in the last few months, had 10 million plus users, and maybe some of them are also very tightly linked to some gaming platforms. We are beginning to see some early startups beginning to raise big ticket funding wherever they have some kind of a play in AR, VR, the kind of AI, crypto assets and that economy and those kind of aspects. We are seeing significant assets, investments going. Big brands like Nike are looking at showrooms with a lot of AR, VR. So it is also the big brands are trying to evaluate. And I think in fashion, in apparel, in retail, in FMCG, maybe in future we will see a lot of applications in defense, in smart cities, at a city level, at a society level. But we are beginning to see a lot of big brands, particularly in the retail, in FMCG, TV, yeah, OTT players, all of them doing a lot of analysis around whatever, and of course the cryptocurrency and the blockchain one. And what are the policy? We are beginning to see a lot of statements come from deputy governor. So there would be a lot of these regulatory deliberations, and the objective of this symposium is not to say that the team in DSCI and our industry ecosystem, we have crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's on metaverse. No, it is the first symposium that we are hosting. We are trying to get professional communities together to understand more, pick up some teams where we can deep dive on, understand privacy, security imperatives as metaverse and the technology stack of metaverse and the innovation ecosystem comes together. So that is one. I'm here to learn. I know very little of metaverse, and I'm hoping to learn from all the distinguished speakers and startups who have very enthusiastically supported us in hosting this first Metaverse. I would say with 35 plus years in the industry, every time there's been a technology wave, right from MS-DOS to the cloud environments, we are always, sometimes we tend to be skeptical of its near-term mainstreaming. I don't think we should do that this time. Let's all try to understand and get prepared on various facets first as the technology ecosystem matures, but the policy imperatives, privacy imperatives too. I'm here to also listen, as I understand more than 50 people are participating in this. 500 people have registered for this. I'm one of the delegates also in this symposium to learn. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rama.